Okay, well, thanks everyone for taking a look at this other video today. So we're up to edition 2 of the Sports Corner. I just wanted to apologise. Last week I talked about Delitri Evans having a grade 1 injury to the syndesmosis before Origin last year. He actually had surgery, so he would have had a grade 2 or a grade 3 injury. So just so you guys are aware, if you happen to look it up or happen to read the wrong article. So the disclaimer today, certainly relates to that. All of my opinions, I am qualified to give them in terms of as being an orthopaedic surgeon, but I don't know these players personally. I've not reviewed them. I've not seen their scans, and I don't know the people that have formally assessed them and subsequently treated them. And I have no professional relationship with the players themselves or the organisations that they work and play for. The opinions I give here are for education purposes only. If you happen to recognise an injury that you believe you've got yourself, then I would urge you to seek medical attention. And look, basically these videos are not designed for you to treat yourself. They're designed to educate you and also provide an insight for people that are interested in these types of injuries. So saying that, we'll now move on to NRL round 4. And we have an interesting injury today which contrasts with Connor Watson's injury last week. So this was to Kurt Mann of the Knights. He sustained a low ankle sprain, which is different to what Connor Watson had. Connor Watson had a high ankle sprain, and that's the picture of the injury there when he was playing the Raiders last week. Now, there is a difference between Kurt Mann's injury in terms of the mechanism and what it is compared to Connor Watson. So Kurt Mann has what's called a low ankle sprain. That is the sprain that we're all familiar with. That is very, very commonly happens, makes up the majority of ankle sprains that turn up to doctors. Now, we're going to draw this ankle again that we did last week. So that's just pointing out the tibia. The big bone takes 7/8 of your weight, and the fibular bone, which is a small bone that takes 1/8 of your weight. And then we're going to once again draw the heel bone, which is known as the calcaneus. Now, this is all looking at your ankle from the front. Okay, and you'll see some ligaments there in red and in green. And last week we talked about the red area, which is the syndesmosis. And this week we're talking about the green area. These are known as the lower lateral ankle ligaments. And the top one is known as the ATFL, and the bottom one is known as the CFL. And they're the most commonly injured ligaments in the ankle, and they happen in sprains. Now, the difference here between Connor Watson and Kurt Mann is that the ankle there is rolling in. We've circled it there, it's rolling in. Connor's ankle rolled out, and hence the reason why Kurt's got a different injury. And it's common for you to have an ankle sprain with an inversion injury. So we're going to compare them side by side very shortly, but that's the position that Kurt Mann's ankle would have been in, probably a little bit worse than that actually. And it's an inversion injury. The foot rolls in. That's important to note, right? Now, this is Connor Watson's injury from last week, so we're going to draw that here. He's making the tackle. All the weight is on the outer aspect of his foot, so his foot's rolling out. Right, and he's got the injury he had is called a high ankle sprain, or an injury to the syndesmosis, and that is worse than what Kurt Mann suffered. Now you look at the difference here. Kurt Mann's ankle there is rolling in, and his likely injury that he sustained is a low ankle sprain where the foot rolls in. Okay, it's a key difference. So if you know someone that's had the injury, if their foot rolled out, it's more likely they've had a syndesmosis injury. Now the picture here on the left shows the areas in green are most likely where Kurt Mann was tender. The area in red there is a syndesmosis. Now, actually, in 60% of people, the red area will be tender as well in a normal ankle sprain, and in about 40%, the actual other side of your ankle is also tender, and we think that's because things get stretched. Now, in terms of grading, we talked about grading last week with the syndesmosis injuries and how important that was and how it was partially based on the MRI. In lateral ankle sprains, we base it more on how the patient feels, and basically a grade 1 means you've got minor of everything, a little bit of swelling, no functional loss, it's a bit sore, but it's pretty good. And a grade 3 injury, which is the worst, you get severe swelling, it's difficult to walk, and it's very tender. And somewhere in the middle there is a grade 2. But all of these are treated very similarly, and that's what we call non-operatively. So tend to be treated without surgery because we haven't found any evidence that surgery makes it more likely to make it better or get you back quicker. Now, Kurt would have had an x-ray again, just like Connor did, to rule out any obvious fractures. And you also would have got an MRI. Usually the rest of us in the population don't get an MRI, but because they're footballers, they need to make sure there's no other injury, and they're going to try and rehab them fast. They've got an MRI to make sure there's nothing else. Now, in terms of treating a low ankle sprain, you start with something called police therapy, okay? And that is just a simple way of describing how we treat an ankle sprain. Now, P stands for protect, and that's usually in a brace or a boot. And what we're trying to do with that is prevent the ankle from rolling in, and usually you do that sometimes between 6 to 12 weeks. Then we have what's called optimal loading. So that means you can walk on the ankle. We don't actually need to keep you off it. We don't want you doing crazy stuff like running. We want to gradually build it up until you no longer feel painful. All right, that's very, very simple. The next is ice, and most of us who have injured ourselves playing sport, ice is great in terms of reducing swelling. So applying ice to the area is important. Compression, something like a compression bandage, also helps with the swelling, because if you've got a really swollen ankle, you're not going to be able to get a boot on to play sport again. And then elevate, so really keeping it up on 2 pillows, ideally above your heart as much as possible for at least 4, 5, 6 days minimum. So I'm sure the guys looking after Kurt would have been likely doing that. And then surely Kurt would most likely have been having some aggressive physiotherapy to try and get the range in his ankle back. So range of motion exercises are really important for an ankle sprain. That means continuing to move your ankle, and that's often trying to write an alphabet with your ankle, or draw circles. Strengthening exercises, so strengthening the muscles around the ankle so that you're less likely to have that ability to roll in where you can't control it. And then something called proprioception. Proprioception means knowing where your limb is in space even though you can't see it. So physios have specific exercises they can do to train that, and it helps reduce your chance of having another injury. Now, what he wouldn't have had is things that have been shown, unfortunately, in the literature to have no effect. And one of those is a low-intensity ultrasound. You might have actually had people try and treat you with that in the past. That actually has been shown to have no effect. Laser therapy has also been shown to have no effect in terms of improving outcomes in these injuries. And the other one is electrotherapy as well. As medical literature says that there's no real benefit to that either. So they're the things he would have not likely have had in his treatment. In terms of the return to sport, and that's really what we're interested in, can he play today? The average layoff in soccer is between 7 to 18 days. Okay, and 83 to 89% of ankle sprains in athletes require less than 4 weeks of lost time. Okay, so it's pretty likely he'll make it back within a week. So if he doesn't make it back this week, he will probably make it back next week. Okay. And look at the possible repercussions to what can happen after he's potentially had this injury. So 40% of people in the general population have some sort of ongoing symptom, whether that's instability or pain or problems with the ankle. Kurt's may not necessarily be in that population because he's going to get a lot of physio and a lot of rehab. But he does have between 2 and 5 times the risk of having another sprain. And what we know is wearing an external brace like this one on the foot will reduce that by about 70%. But you don't really see many footballers wearing that. They feel cumbersome in the boot. Interestingly, studies in soccer players show they can still kick a ball, move fast and those sort of things with the brace on, but it's most likely you'll probably see Kurt with a taped up ankle. Anyway, thank you for listening today. And if you've got any other questions, take a look at us on www.huntfootandankle.com.au.